The night he opened the door, everything he had carefully locked away threatened to spill out at once. The porch light flickered. Rain clung to the air like a held breath, and there she stood, his best friend, soaked, shaking, eyes carrying a question that could undo years of quiet survival. In that single second, he knew this wasn't just about a place to sleep. It was about the fragile balance he'd built as a single father, and the one decision that could change all their lives forever. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet courage it takes to open a door when life tests you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, your city, your country, your corner of the world, because stories like this connect us all. Ethan Miller had learned to live carefully. Since the accident that took his wife 3 years ago, his life had narrowed into a predictable path that kept his heart safe and his daughter steady. Every morning began before dawn, when he'd packed lunchboxes and tied shoelaces with a tenderness that surprised even him. Every evening ended with homework at the kitchen table, a simple dinner, and a bedtime routine that never changed. He worked as a warehouse supervisor by day, counted pennies by night, and told himself that stability mattered more than happiness. For 8-year-old Lily, stability was everything. For him, it was survival. Grace Parker had been part of that survival once. She had been there when Ethan collapsed in the hospital hallway, numb and hollow, unable to understand how a life could end so suddenly. She brought meals, folded laundry, and sat silently when words felt useless. Over time, though, life pulled her in a different direction. A troubled marriage, a move across town, long stretches of silence filled with unspoken pain. They stayed friends in the way people do when they're afraid of what closeness might awaken. Occasional messages, birthday wishes, a shared history that never quite faded. That night, the rain had chased Grace to his door. Her marriage had finally broken in a way that could not be patched with apologies or promises. She had left with nothing but a small bag and a heart bruised by years of trying to be enough. She had driven without a plan, guided only by the memory of a man who once made her feel safe, without asking for anything in return. Standing on that porch, she asked if she could stay, her voice barely there, as if even hope was afraid to speak too loudly. Ethan froze, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. His house was small, his routines fragile, and his daughter asleep down the hall with her favorite nightlight glowing softly. Letting Grace in meant inviting chaos, questions, and emotions he had worked hard to bury. It meant risking Lily's sense of security and his own carefully maintained distance from the kind of feelings that had once shattered him. Yet turning her away felt impossible. Kindness had been the one thing that saved him when he was at his lowest. How could he deny it now? He stepped aside, and the door closed behind her with a quiet finality. The house seemed to inhale, as if aware that something important had just changed. Grace took a shower, borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit, and curled up on the couch like someone afraid of taking up too much space. Ethan lay awake in his room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain and the hum of the refrigerator, wondering when his life had become so fragile that compassion felt like a risk. The days that followed were heavy with unspoken tension. Grace helped in small ways, packing lunches, washing dishes, keeping herself busy to avoid being a burden. Lily, perceptive beyond her years, noticed the sadness in Grace's eyes and the way her father seemed distracted. Children sense shifts in emotional weather long before adults admit there's a storm. Ethan worried constantly, about boundaries, about rumors, about what it would mean if he allowed himself to feel something again. At work, exhaustion crept into his bones. At home, memories stirred in corners he'd sealed off. Grace's presence reminded him of laughter before grief, of conversations that flowed easily, of the possibility that life could be more than endurance. At the same time, guilt gnawed at him. He had promised himself that Lily would never have to watch another adult walk away. He had promised that love would never again feel like a gamble she might lose. She had leaned on Ethan in desperation, but she knew how much he carried already. Every night she lay awake on the couch, listening to the house settle, questioning whether she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She didn't want to be another complication in his life, another chapter marked by pain. Yet being there, in that quiet home filled with ordinary kindness, reminded her of who she had been before years of compromise dimmed her light. The turning point came on a simple afternoon, when Lily came home from school in tears after a difficult day. Ethan tried to comfort her, but the words tangled in his throat. Grace knelt beside her, patient and gentle, listening without rushing to fix anything. She validated Lily's feelings, told her it was okay to be hurt, and helped her find the courage to talk it through. Watching from the doorway, Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. It wasn't fear he felt then, it was gratitude. That night, as the rain returned and the house glowed softly from within, Ethan realized that love didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came quietly, in the form of someone who stayed, who respected boundaries, who showed up without demanding more than they were given. He understood that protecting his daughter didn't mean shutting out every possibility of connection. It meant choosing carefully, honestly, and with compassion. Grace found the strength to rebuild her life, step by step, supported but not rescued. Ethan found the courage to open his heart just enough to let warmth in again. Lily learned that families can change shape without breaking, that trust can be built slowly, and that kindness doesn't always lead to loss. Before this story ends, please pause for a moment and comment below what this journey made you feel. Share a word, a sentence, or a piece of your own story. Your voice matters here. In the end, the door that opened on a rainy night didn't just offer shelter. It offered healing. It reminded three wounded hearts that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes to compassion, even when you're afraid. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or reminded you of the power of kindness and second chances, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and stay with us by subscribing. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they remind us that even after loss, life can still surprise us with grace.